When it comes to despicably cruel and inhumane characters in any series, it's normal for one or two characters to come to mind. People that really stand out for all the wrong reasons. In Game of Thrones, however, it would not be easy to narrow down the characters who define such words of malice, with individuals like Cersei Lannister, her son Joffrey Baratheon, the Mountain Ser Gregor Clegane, all meeting those undesirable standards. Ramsay Bolton would surely and most certainly take his place amongst such monstrous people. Cruel, emotionless, sadistic and psychopathic, Ramsay has committed so many horrific crimes and atrocities that the only thing more disturbing than the acts is the amount of joy he feels when he's doing them. In today's video, I'm going to take you through the entire life of Ramsay Bolton, from his birth as the result of rape up until his death at the hands of his own hounds. Because he hasn't died in the book as of yet, I'm going to use the TV show as reference for his demise, while focusing on the books for his early life up until his most recent appearance in A Dance with Dragons. Welcome to Game of Thronelore. This is the life of Ramsay Bolton. As the product of rape between Roose Bolton and a miller's wife, after Roose decided to illicitly practice the banned tradition of the first night, where a lord had the right to bed the commoner's bride. He then hanged the miller under a tree for not informing his lord of the new marriage and raped the bride beneath his swaying body. An incredibly brutal and cold showing on Lord Bolton's behalf. A year later, the woman arrived at the Dreadfort with a newborn Ramsay. Roose was about to kill the woman and the babe, but when he saw the child had his eyes, the taboo of kinslaying stopped him from doing so. The woman claimed her husband's brother stole the mill and cast her out. Angered by this, Roose had the man's tongue removed, so he would spread no tales to Roose's liege lord, Rickard Stark. Roose then gave the woman the mill back, along with a pig, several chicks and a bag of stars every year, on the condition that she never revealed to Ramsay the truth about who his father was. Ramsay's mother once again arrived at the castle, but this time years later, claiming that she needed help in raising the boy, who grew up wild and unruly. Roose sent Ramsay a servant known as Reek. Reek, despite taking constant washes, always smelled awful due to some unknown birth condition that caused his skin to reek, thus his nickname. Giving him to Ramsay and his mother was actually a cruel jest by Roose, but Ramsay and Reek then grew inseparable. Now this is not the same Reek that we see Theon Greyjoy be forced to take on. Roose would later reflect on whether Ramsay had corrupted Reek or whether Reek had corrupted Ramsay, though Reek would follow Ramsay's orders quite faithfully. Ramsay mentioned once that Reek knew better than to ever deny him. Despite Roose's instruction to Ramsay's mother, either she or possibly even Reek informed him of his true parentage. Roose believed that both Reek and Ramsay's mother were urging Ramsay on, constantly reminding the increasingly violent bastard of his rights. While most bastards content themselves with their lot in life, Ramsay had larger ambitions. Roose's elder, true-born son, Demeric, attempted to forge a sibling connection with his half-brother, though Ramsay swiftly went about disposing of him with poison, thus robbing Roose of his only true-born heir, and becoming a kinslayer. Ramsay earned the enmity of House Dustin in the process, as Lady Barbary Dustin was quite fond of her nephew Demeric. 2 years prior to the beginning of the War of the Five Kings, Roose brought Ramsay to the Dreadfort finally, as he had no other sons, true-born or otherwise. Ramsay then learned to read and write while living there. He had finally forged a path into his father's plans. While his father, Lord Bolton, is in southern Westeros during the War of the Five Kings, Ramsay begins to amass troops at the Dreadfort. When he receives news that the neighbouring lands of House Hornwood have lost both Lord Halis and his heir Darren, Ramsay attacks, taking the Hornwood Keep and forcing the widowed Lady Danella Hornwood to marry him. He rapes her, forces her to sign a document proclaiming him Lord of the Hornwood, then locks her in a tower without food, where she starves to death after even eating some of her own fingers. Ramsay practices rape, murder, and other crimes around the lands adjacent to the Dreadfort, gaining quite an infamous reputation. Sir Rodrik Cassel attempts to put an end to his atrocities after Ramsay forced himself upon Lady Hornwood. Rodrik's party comes across Ramsay shortly after he raped and killed a peasant girl. Ramsay is able to survive, however, by switching clothes with Reek, who was killed in his place. Rodrik yearns to put Ramsay disguised as Reek to death too, but he needs him as a witness to many of Ramsay's crimes and brings him to Winterfell. In the Riverlands, Roose informs Sir Edmure Tully that Ramsay has been killed by Rodrik, and he hopes his campaign against Harrenhal will make up for his bastard's actions in the eyes of Robb Stark, the king in the north. After Theon Greyjoy captures Winterfell, Ramsay exchanges a vow of service to Theon for his release from Winterfell's dungeon. He quickly becomes one of Theon's most trusted attendants, even assisting Theon in his hunt to bring the escaped Bran and Rickon Stark back to Winterfell. He orchestrates Theon's cover-up of the Stark boys' escape by killing 2 peasant boys of a similar age, then flaying the corpses to avoid recognition. Theon presents their flayed corpses as the Stark boys, then has their heads mounted on spikes over the castle walls. Theon uses the Winterfell Kennelmaster Farlin as a scapegoat and has him executed for the murders. After Theon becomes overwhelmed by the attack from the Northmen, he reluctantly agrees to have Ramsay leave with a huge sum of money and return with a much needed reinforcement from the Dreadfort. Ramsay and his forces march to Winterfell, where Sir Rodrik Cassel and his host move to greet them. Ramsay has swapped his serving man's garb for a full set of armour, complete with a red helmet. As the Castellan offers him his hand in friendship, however, Ramsay slices Cassel's arm off and leads his forces in a rampage through the stunned Northmen's ranks. Following the battle at Winterfell, Ramsay rides to the castle's gates and presents the corpses of Rodrik, Leopold Tallheart, and Clay Serwyn to an onlooking Theon as a sign of his loyalty. Theon opens the gates and meets with Ramsay himself, who removes his red helmet and reveals his true identity. He tells Theon that he would much enjoy the use of his bedwarmer Kyra, and knocks him to the floor when Theon protests. Ramsay carries out a great sack of Winterfell, murdering many of its inhabitants in cold blood, slaughtering the remaining Iron Men and capturing Theon Greyjoy in the process. Ramsay keeps Theon at the Dreadfort, where he reportedly flays part of his body. He sends a small piece of skin to King Robb Stark as a gift to show vengeance is being exacted for Bran and Rickon Stark's apparent murders. Ramsay's father, Lord Roose Bolton, murders Robb at the Red Wedding, and afterward House Bolton is rewarded for their service to the Lannisters, with Roose named Warden of the North and Ramsay betrothed to a girl posing as Arya Stark. This would give Ramsay claim to becoming Lord of Winterfell. They also receive a decree of legitimization from King Tommen Baratheon I, making Ramsay now Ramsay Bolton instead of a bastard Snow. While in captive at the Dreadfort, Theon Greyjoy is brutally tortured at the hands of Ramsay. He forces Theon to take on the role of Reek, his slain manservant, never allowing Theon to bathe and covering him in excrement. Ramsay also removes the skin on several of Theon's toes and fingers, leaving him in agony for days before removing the joints. Ramsay breaks off several of Theon's teeth as he hated Theon's smile. It is also implied that Ramsay castrates Theon too. Ramsay then captures Moat Cailin from the Ironborn by sending Theon in as an envoy. He promises food and safe passage to the sick and starving islanders if they surrender. When they do surrender, Ramsay has all of them, with the exception of Theon, flayed alive and displays their skinless bodies on poles along the road by the Moat Cailin. Roose is highly displeased by his son's behaviour, stating that he needs to be more discreet with his practices, as his infamous exploits are now well known throughout the North, something that will prove to make certain situations more difficult as there were more important things than just inflicting fear. After hearing that Stannis Baratheon has taken Deepwood Motte, Roose decides to move the wedding from Barrowtown to Winterfell to strengthen Ramsay's claim as Lord of Winterfell and to goad Stannis into fighting. Roose tells Theon that Ramsay will kill any sons birthed by Roose's new wife, Walder Frey. At Winterfell, Ramsay weds Jeyne Poole, with only himself, his father and Theon knowing the girl is not truly Arya Stark, and he repeatedly abuses her while forcing Theon to watch. Jeyne and Theon, however, are rescued and freed by Mance Rayder, whom Jon Snow has sent to rescue his sister when he heard of the wedding. Although Jeyne and Theon escape, Jon receives a raven with a message purportedly from Ramsay claiming that he has Mance, has defeated the Northern Army and has killed Stannis Baratheon in battle, and claims he now possesses Stannis' sword. He also states that he wants his bride back, as well as Queen Cersei Florent, Princess Shireen Baratheon, Melisandre, Val, the Wildling Prince, actually the son of Gilly, and his Reek, and he will come for Jon if he does not give him what he wants. Now, whether the letter actually came from Ramsay and which parts, if any, of the letter's contents are true, still remain unknown. Now, that is the last of Ramsay's appearances in the books, so in order to discover his fate, I'm now going to move to speaking about what happens in the TV show. Now, of course, there are some inaccuracies between the books and the show, the main one being that it's not actually Arya or Jeyne, but Sansa Stark who becomes Ramsay's bride. And that letter Ramsay sent to Jon was in fact stating he had Jon's brother Rickard and wanted Sansa back by his side, which leads to the Battle of the Bastards. Now, it's not been confirmed if such a battle will happen in the book, and I've also read on some forums that it actually won't be included going forward, but for the sake of this video and for the fact it's not being confirmed or denied, I'm going to say that the Battle of the Bastards is possible canon for now. So, greatly outnumbered by Ramsay and his bannermen, Jon Snow meets him on the battlefield, where Ramsay cruelly teases Jon by sending young Rickard back to his brother, telling him to run, only to shoot him down with an arrow when he gets just enough distance, killing the Stark boy. A huge battle ensues, and despite Jon and his forces fighting valiantly, they are moments from defeat as a victorious Ramsay looks on. However, just as it appears Jon is certain for death again, Littlefinger and the Knights of the Vale intervene and push the Bolton bannermen back, defeating a large portion of the army. Ramsay retreats back as Jon, Sansa and the others pursue him to Winterfell. And while at Winterfell, Ramsay remains overconfident despite now being outnumbered and pretty much a marked man for death. Despite an array of arrows aimed at Jon, he manages to shield himself until he gets close enough to Ramsay to knock him off his feet. Jon then begins brutally beating him, landing punch after punch after punch until Ramsay's face becomes almost unrecognizable. It's at this point Sansa intervenes and Ramsay is taken to the dog pen. With his dogs starved for days, Ramsay's blood is too sweet for even his own pets to resist. Sansa Stark looks on as Ramsay screams in pain and agony as his own hounds savage him to death. It's no doubt that Ramsay Bolton got a death he was fully deserved of, given his own horrific crimes committed throughout his lifetime. It will be interesting to see if his death in the books is going to be similar to how he dies in the show. I do fully respect that the books are canon, but for the purposes of a complete video to detail Ramsay's lifespan, I included a TV version of his demise. He still remains one of the most villainous characters to appear in Game of Thrones. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. Everyone, notifications of uploads are more important than ever, so please, if you haven't already, turn those notifications on to make sure you're notified the moment my video goes live. Making videos is what I love to do, it's my dream and my passion. However, it does cost time and money to produce this content, so if you have $1 to spare to support me on Patreon in exchange for some exclusive unseen content, then you can click the Patreon link below or at the end of this video. Please only support me if you can afford it. and make sure to follow me on Instagram at InstaDNJ and on Twitter at PotterFolklore. Check out my other videos appearing on screen, and please make sure, most importantly, to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again everyone, and please have a great day.